Hello and welcome to Connect, Engage, Collaborate, a podcast brought to you by the Tempe Police Department. I'm your host, Patricia Ramirez, and today I'm joined by a panel of guests. Can you please start off by introducing yourself?
My name is Shawn Parlich. I'm a detention sergeant for Tempe PD.
Can you give me a little more information in terms of any prior history in law enforcement, or give me a little more story on just who you are?
So I've been with Tempe for about 6 years now. Prior to that, I retired from another law enforcement agency after serving 20 years.
And who inspired you to go into law enforcement?
You know, growing up, my father was a part-time police officer some years back, and I saw some of the things he was doing, helping the community, and it's something that caught my interest and decided to go into when I became of age.
Thank you for sharing that. And also, can you please introduce yourself?
I'm Gianna Parlich. I work in the Tempe Police as a record specialist and trainer, and I've been with Tempe for almost a year.
And tell me a little bit more about your story as well, please.
So I originally worked at Pinal County Superior Court as a court clerk for 2 years, and then I came here.
If there's a listener that is interested in terms of different types of jobs that we have here at the Tempe Police Department, can you please share with me a part of the hiring process, how you learned, and was that supportive? So tell me about your hiring, please.
So it was very supportive throughout the entire journey. So you start off with your supervisor would call you, letting you know, hey, the job, the pay, the shifts that you would go for. And then with your training, you would learn floor training or classroom training. And the classroom training, it would be more of a group setting. You would learn the terms, different processes that we do. And then for the floor training, that's the more hands-on work that you're going to be experiencing real time. That's really important, time sensitive. And you'll be training and on probation for 6 months.
And is this something that you've enjoyed?
Oh, immensely. I love it.
Oh, great. And would you encourage someone else to look at hiring or look at this type of a job?
Absolutely. Like, you learn so many different aspects and walks of life. It's a very good learning experience.
Thank you for that. And now I'm going to switch off back to detention. So can you share with us, what is the main role of a detention officer?
For detention, when police officers make an arrest, they will transport them down to the jail. We'll accept them in our receiving area. They'll get searched. They'll get processed in regards to the officer will complete his paperwork, and we'll pull the paperwork through. We'll fingerprint process them. We'll get them to a court that they need to go to, or if they need to be brought to another agency, depending on what their charges are. So our main objective is to support patrol in the arrest process that they do on the street. I'm cutting it down pretty quickly of what we do because it's more extensive than that. But
sure.
And then once we get them to court, and after they're processing in the court, we'll either send them to, we'll release them, or we'll send them to Maricopa County Sheriff's Department at their intake, transfer and release facility, or we'll drop them off in another agency if that's where they need to go. So we're just here to get them through the process after patrol, arrest them.
And can you tell me about some of your relationships in the police department? And mainly what I'm asking is, I do know that an officer brings in a person, so there's already that relationship there in terms of who you work along with. But can you share other aspects of different departments that detention works with?
When they do bring them in, we may have to call for warrants, so we'll call records, and we'll have them send down the paperwork we need. We may have to contact Maricopa County Sheriff's Department or dispatch to have them send down warrants when records is not available for us. Sometimes we contact other agencies to see if they want them on the warrants for picking them up, or we may have to talk to our detective unit to see if they're going to come down and question them and ask them, for more charges and so on and so forth. So those are just a small section that we may deal with. There's more, I'm sure.
And tell me, do you communicate with the community? For example, does someone at times call the jail and ask about a loved one or to check on the status of an arrest? So do you have any communication with the community or with family members?
When a person comes in and we get them completed process, we give them an opportunity to make phone calls. So when they make phone calls, hopefully they're calling their loved ones or someone to come get them or let them know what happened to them. And of course, after that happens, we get phone calls from whoever they have called, asking us questions like you said, why are they there? Where are they going to court? What are we doing with them? So we interact with the public quite a bit in regards to prisoners and what's going to ultimately happen to them.
So sometimes when I would bring someone in myself that was arrested and I turned over to our detention facility, a question would often come up, can I make a phone call? Do I just have one phone call? I would often be asked. And I would tell a person, this isn't television. So can you talk about how we treat a person in the jail? What is our role in being fair and talk to us about that one phone call.
Once we get the prisoner in and he gets processed through us, and that means the paperwork's been pulled, he's been fingerprinted, photographed. If they're cooperative, we will let them use the phone. We usually let them make several calls if they need to. If they're cooperating, if they're not acting out, we'll let them use the phone, and then, a reasonable amount of time. We've had it where they couldn't reach anybody. We've put them in a holding cell for them to go to court or to be transferred. And we've also let them use the phone again later on because we knew they couldn't get a hold of somebody or they couldn't get someone to come bond them out, whatever the case may be. So we do try and accommodate them, the prisoners, as far as getting them to use the phone to contact whoever needs to contact, either to get out or let them know where they're going.
And do we keep people in our jail? Do we hold people for like a week or 3 weeks, or is this a 24-hour process?
From the time they get in, pretty much to the time they leave, it's a 24-hour holding facility. There has been cases where we will get prisoners that are sentenced to a day's time of our jail, where they can spend it in Tempe jail if they've been arrested with Tempe and dealing strictly with Tempe. But for most part, they're in and out within 24 hours or less.
And do you mind sharing how we handle juveniles? So when a juvenile is in our custody, do we blend them in with adults or do we treat that situation quite different?
So when a juvenile comes into our jail, we have no movement. Everything stops. So they're not to be in sight and sound of any prisoners or any other people that are in the jail. So they get set. We have a specific side for them to sit on or stay in. We have 2 cells for them on the J side. It's called. Time they come in till time they have to leave is 6 hours. We do not process them like we would a normal adult. They do not go into our system, our JMS or RMS. They don't go into that. They just get held in the detention style. So it's just on the board showing that they're in our custody. But like I said, 6 hours is the max that we can hold them in our jail.
And my last question, just in terms of the jail, can you explain why we ask a person about their mental health status and in terms of their own safety? So can you explain a little bit about the questions that are often asked when a prisoner comes in?
When prisoners come in, we have a list of questions we do ask them. And the reason why we ask them those questions is for their safety. So if they've been drinking or on drugs, if they have any mental illness, if they see a doctor for any of that stuff, or if they're taking any medication or injured, that's so in case something happens while they're in our custody, we can see that they get the necessary treatment they need, whether it's calling Tempe Fire Department or whether or not we need to let the judge know they might have to be put in a different court. So yes, we ask specific questions and it's strictly for their benefit, not for ours. We want to make sure when they come into jail, we give them the medical treatment or the treatment they need so we can get them in and out of facilities safely.
So what does the training process of a detention officer look like?
To start off with detention, there's a couple academies within Arizona you can go to. There's Maricopa County Sheriff's Department, and there's also Department of Corrections. They have academies for corrections officer and detention officers. So it's about approximately a 12-week course. I think with COVID it's changed a little bit, but for most part it's a 12-week course. We come out, we graduate, we are sworn officers. We are not commissioned officers like police officers, but we're sworn. One is in a prison and one is in a temporary holding facility like detention, like in the jail here down in Tempe PD and like Maricopa County Jail. That is those are detention officers. If you go to the Department of Corrections, a prison, those are corrections officers.
Okay.
That's the only difference between the two.
Okay, thank you. And I want to switch back to the records department. So you said that you are part of training, and that's a big responsibility. It's a leadership role as well. So can you talk to me about the training and what that's all about?
So with training, I'm teaching them the different information systems that we have. We have what's called NCIC and ACGIS. So NCIC is National Crime Information Center, and then ACGIS is Arizona Criminal Justice Information Systems. And we use both of those on a daily basis. So it links all department agencies so we can receive the same information so we can act accordingly to what is needed. And we want to make sure we're putting in warrants correctly, stolen vehicles, missing persons, because that is all time sensitive and it's very heavy compliance, huge responsibility. Even our IT department is legally certified so that they're handling the sensitive time information so that we can keep the public safe because we're all about serving our community, making our community safe.
Absolutely. And tell me, do you at times receive calls from citizens, or do you, who will routinely ask for records and a copy of a record?
So we get everybody. So we get other agencies that need reports, we get citizens that need reports. And so they do call us and ask us, what do I need to give you so we can obtain this police report? And so we'll answer those questions, or if they want to talk to other officers or detentions according to their cases, or detectives, according to their cases, so that we can get those victims to where they need to go so that they can get their case moving forward.
And we were talking earlier about technology. And so something that we use now is we have body worn cameras. So part of records and a person's right, would it be also to obtain a copy of a body worn camera video?
Yes, absolutely. You can certainly get body worn audio, video, 911 call, and the report. So we redact those according to Arizona Constitution, Article 2, Victim Bill of Rights. And those are where our redaction policies are in play, that we act accordingly according to federal and state law. So we're in compliance at all times. And we want to protect our victims from becoming re-victimized, and especially juveniles.
And so now let's switch to what are some of the benefits and advantages of having a career as a detention officer?
Well, like I said, I've been in law enforcement for a long time. So being a detention officer, you get to see the good and the bad in society coming in. To me, it's rewarding because, I've been doing this a long time. The benefits, the pension that we look for, we get a decent salary. And you go to work and you feel like you've made a difference in society. So to me, that's rewarding enough for me to stay in this field.
So can you tell me about when you were hired and you were given the badge that's on your uniform that you're wearing? Can you tell me about what pride that gave you, what that represented to your family, and how you felt?
In order to receive this badge, we had to put in at least 12 weeks of training. So you were working as a group to accomplish the goal for the group as far as being a detention officer. So it was very fulfilling that way. So when they do present the badge to you and you get to put it on for the first time, it does give you a sense of pride that now you are here to help society or protect society, and also support patrol in a different fashion versus being on the street. So I felt a great sense of pride when I completed my academy training and was able to step up to the podium and receive my badge. Yes.
And how did your family feel about all of that?
They've been very supportive. Again, I was in another academy at the police department, so they were part of that as well, but very supportive during my entire career. So feel very, very thankful for that.
And can you tell me what makes the detention and records bureaus feel like working with family?
I can't tell how many times we call records in a day, but so there's a lot of conversation between detention and records.
We literally are like family.
Yes. My daughter works in records. My son works down in detention as well. We've had other families working together, the Hales,
Registers.
the Registers, the Schaffners. So yes, it's like a family. So it's
we can relate to issues too together, which is nice to understand what we're going through.
And as you are sitting with your daughter here, how do you feel?
I'm very, very proud of her and that she's working in this building and, I'm hoping that she can continue with her education and move on up within this department.
Absolutely. And if you can share, how do you feel about your father as you're sitting here with him?
So proud.
Oh, I can see it in her face. That's beautiful. And so tell me, as you were just saying, you would hope that she could continue in this field. What are some opportunities that she could face?
For opportunities, there's always room for advancement. I mean, we're in a time where a lot of people are starting to retire or move on to different fields. So, yes, there's opportunity for maybe be record supervisors down the road, or and go on up from there.
And could she come into detention? Could she go to communications? Could she be a police officer if that's what she chose?
Tempe has a lot of opportunity that she can choose from if that's what the path she wants to choose. And I would highly encourage it.
And so tell me, why is records so important to the police department?
It's important because we want to make a difference to everybody. We touch every single report, incident, referral, and it's important also to the other agencies that we support, such as the FBI or the Arizona Department of Public Safety. Especially with FBI, there's our system called NIBRS, where we have to report, and NIBRS is referred to as the National Incident-Based Reporting System, that we want to make sure we're in compliance with all federal and state laws, and we're establishing the relationships. Especially example would be like domestic violence. We want to establish the relationship between that and what rises to that incident.
And so we're talking about records. What about when we are dealing with cold cases and we're dealing with reports from 35 years ago, 30 years ago? Is that something that comes into play for records and is something that is still available, or is all that paperwork just thrown away?
No, we definitely keep it. We have records from like 1950s and then some, and they're still relevant today, especially if someone were to apply for like a gun permit or concealing. Those are all important because FBI will ask about it. So will Arizona Department of Public Safety, and we let them know, hey, this is the report that we have for that person.
Thank you for that. And you did share earlier, we talked about some redaction, but if we can go into a little more of that, if you can share what type of information usually gets redacted and why.
So what we redact is the driver's licenses, the social securities, credit card information, date of birth, just so that all this very sensitive information doesn't get out there. And like I said before, we don't want to re-victimize our victims.
So we follow a system, we follow rules with redaction. It's not as though we get a request and we just get to do whatever we want to do. Okay, there's a reason for that system.
Absolutely.
But we do want people to know that if they need a copy of their records, their body-worn camera, it is certainly available.
Absolutely, yes.
And so how would a person obtain that information?
So they would just fill out a written request form that we would have provided also on tempe.gov. And with our customer service, you can certainly come into our lobby and have that face-to-face contact. And they can also help you with filling out that form if there's any issues. You can certainly call us, and over the phone, we'll explain what is needed on that form or how to obtain that form and any fees that might be applicable.
And can you tell me when there's a victim? So, for example, there's a victim to a child crime, and if we have an issue with finances, is that a copy for the victim? Is that free at times, or how is that available for a victim?
Victim's free copy is the first copy that they receive. After that, they do have to pay.
Thank you for that. And can you tell me, what experience do you need to apply in records, and what does the training process entail? And I know you spoke about some of that, but if you can just give a little more information, please.
So you have to at least be 18 years or older. You don't need a degree, and you have to have at least 1 year of customer service that's required, whether it's in retail, in person, over the phone.
And what about detention?
So currently we're 18 years of age as far as to apply. No criminal background, because we do an extensive background check. We do a polygraph test. There's interviews. There's an oral panel. That's just to get in the process and before they get hired and would go to academy if they're accepted.
I want to tap a little bit into your prior law enforcement and talking about change that you've seen in law enforcement and also here at the city of Tempe. So when you first started in your career, Would you say, reflecting back to the city of Tempe, what is the difference between women in the field?
So when I started, it was back in the early 90s. There was a lot less women in the field. And I've noticed that there's a substantial number, which is, in my opinion, an excellent thing, because in the past, if you needed females for searches and stuff like that, we didn't have it in the past. So more women in the field, I'm a big supporter of that. And I wish we had more in the jail, to tell you the truth.
And what about diversity as we are here in the city of Tempe? Has any of that changed through your career? And have you seen any change, any progress?
Absolutely. Tempe's been very open with everybody. And I encourage anyone who's looking to pursue this field to apply. You know, we can't get enough people as it is. So don't let, if you have I think there's some type of stereotype involved with being in law enforcement. There's not. And that's definitely, Tempe's very accepting to all people that want to apply, and I encourage it.
And Gianna, can you tell me how many hours a week do records employees work? And can you explain a little bit of the schedule?
They work 40 hours a week. And so we have two different shifts. We have the AM shift and then the PM shift. The AM shift would be 6 a.m. to 3 p.m. and then the night shift would be 3 p.m. to midnight. We get 31,000 calls per year from both officers and civilians. We also average around 7,000 to 8,000 records requests per year that we fulfill. And then we also process over 2,000 requests from the city and county prosecutors per year. And then we also enter and remove about 5,000 or more warrants of the city warrants per year as well.
Is this records department in your department, is it always open, or is it something that we aren't working holidays? Or explain a little more about that, please.
So we work every holiday. We're open 365 days a year, and we don't close. It's just that little break in between from midnight to 6 a.m. that we don't have, that we're not there.
And working those, some of those days are difficult. It may be on a holiday. It may be late hours. Is there opportunity for things such as overtime or financial benefits to some of those difficult shifts?
Absolutely. You can definitely earn overtime and comp time for those holidays that are very much so in demand of the public and needing to be extra safe during those times.
And if someone was nervous about working a night shift or not wanting to do such a shift, do we see some change in that in time and in terms of seniority, or how does a person come into working nights and then one day is also working a day shift?
So while you're in training or on probation as well, you are learning both night shift and day shift. And yes, it is based on seniority. So you'll get to pick, and every shift bid will be different based on your seniority.
And so now let's move on to what are some misconceptions detention officers face from the general public?
So a lot of times when we get prisoners that come in, they're obviously not in a good situation. Some of them are angry, some are combative. So a lot of times they see that we are in uniform as detention. They see us as being the ones that put them there, or the ones arresting them, where we are just the officers just to get them through the process. We're not the ones bringing the charges against them. We're not the one that met with them in the field or had a fight with them or any problems like that. So a lot of times that's some of the stuff we face when the police officers bring the prisoners into the jail.
Earlier, we had a conversation in terms of our stress and what is offered from the city. Would you say at times there's some stress from all of this and all of your work?
Absolutely. This job can be extremely stressful at times. Between the volume of people coming in, sometimes the moods that they come in. We have special cells for people who come in combative, and they might be banging on them all night long. So you're trying to do your work, trying to pull paperwork through, or you're just trying to decompress a little bit from an incident that just happened. And next thing you know, the front cells are banging. They're pounding on the doors, they're kicking the doors, they're yelling, they're screaming. So yeah, it can be very stressful, but we've been very fortunate. My lieutenant has gotten, they do bring down a therapy dog that comes down that visits us. So that's done, in my opinion, has been tremendous for the detention staff to sit down and have the therapy dog that they can sit and pet and spend some time with in between some of these situations that, cause distress.
And even just hearing about that, that just made me smile. So I'm glad that that is happening. Are there any other programs or anything else that we promote in terms of dealing with stress?
Well, there's different trainings that we have allowed officers to go to or try getting them to sign up for. If as a supervisor, if we see some of our staff becoming stressed or not having a good day, we try and get them out of that situation. So we try to look at make sure the wellness of our employees is healthy. Sometimes we can afford to, hey, go take a break, go sit in a break room or get out of this environment for a little bit. It's not all the time, but again, it depends on the scenario that happens for the day and how staff looks there for that day. But we try the best we can to try and keep our employees safe and their keep in consideration for their well-being.
Thank you for that. And would you say that that applies in the records department, Gianna?
Yes, certainly. We do have our breaks where we can step out, especially if we had a rough phone call and they were yelling at you or cursing at you. Definitely can step out and have a breather or, hey, how would have been a good way I can handle this? You can talk with your coworkers and be like, hey, how can I approach this next time? Or a supervisor would have been better equipped for this than I am. And then you try to remain calm too in the situation with especially the phone call and hopefully get them into the direction they need and decompressing the situation.
Well, thank you both for sharing all of this information. And I thank you for taking the time to sit here with me.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.